In this video, I'll show you how you can easily create an aloe vera plant in Blender. In the previous tutorial, I showed you how to create this parlor palm. You can watch that from the I button if you want. And someone named Peanut commented, I do everything like you, but it report error. Please help me. What kind of report does it give you? Can you explain your problem in detail? You can take screenshots and message me on Instagram. And also it could be because of you are not using Blender 2.93 because the add-on only works in Blender 2.93 and above. And I'm replying to this comment in this video because whenever I tried to reply, my comment automatically got removed. And if you guys also have any questions, you can ask me on Instagram. And the first thing I'm gonna do is delete everything, and then I'm gonna add a curve to make this single leaf. You can either choose a path or a bezier, but I'm gonna add a bezier curve. Then I'm gonna rotate that negative 90 degrees on the y-axis. Then in edit mode, I'm gonna move that up on the grid floor so that its pivot point is at the bottom. And in the object data properties in the geometry, you can increase this depth and it will give you a tube like shape, but that's not what we want. What we want is this peanut type of shape. So what we can do is, instead of this tube type of shape, we can make our own custom shape. So what I'm gonna do is add a circle curve. Then I'm gonna move it over here, and in edit mode I'm gonna scale that down, something like this. And now let's make this peanut type of shape. I'm gonna select this handle and I'm gonna move it down to about over here. And you can see that these are sharp at the edges, but this is rounded. And when we select this handle and move this point, the other one moves in the opposite direction, and it actually works like a handle. So what I'm gonna do is select this handle and press V to change the handle type, and I'm gonna choose vector. And now it's sharp, and we can also move this in the other direction and this one in the other direction, but I'm gonna undo that and also change this one to vector. And now I'm gonna select these two handles and move them up something around here. And now I'm gonna deselect these top ones, and now I'm gonna scale these up something like this. And here these are moved up a little bit, so I'm gonna select these 2 points and deselect these ones, and now I'm gonna move them up. And I'm also gonna scale that down a little. I'm gonna select this one and move up a little, and I'm gonna select this one and move that up something like this. I'm also gonna rotate this a little. And when you are happy with your shape, go out of edit mode and then select your curve, and instead of round we can change that to object, and now we can select our object. And keep in mind that it only works with curves. And suppose if we added a mesh circle, then in the object we can't see our circle, and the reason is because it only works with curves. So I'm going to delete this circle, and now I'm going to choose the curve that we made. And now we have got the peanut shape, but it's rotated the wrong way, and the reason is because when we rotated the curve we didn't apply the rotation. So I'm going to press Ctrl A and apply the rotation, and now it's rotated the correct way, and this is looking jagged. And to make that smooth, you can increase this resolution. I'm going to set that to 24, and now it's smoother than before. And now let's go to edit mode and give it a shape of an aloe vera. I'm going to move this over here and rotate that. You can also change the scale of the handle. I'm going to move this over here. And you can also change the scale of the curve by pressing Alt S. I'm going to scale this one up. And you can also add a handle in between by selecting these handles and subdividing it. And now you'll get an extra handle. I'm gonna move this over here, but I'm gonna dissolve these vertices because I don't want that. Then I'm gonna move this to over here. I'm gonna move this point down a little bit, and now that's looking good. And to make these thorns and prickles, don't push your hands on that. If you get any harm by making or touching these thorns, then it's not my responsibility.
I was just kidding. Come on. Come on. You guys know I was just kidding, right?
And for the thorns, I'm gonna add a cone. Then I'm gonna decrease down the vertices to 16 because it will be so small. Then go to edit mode and move that up by holding Ctrl for bigger increments. Then in object mode, scale down the cone until it's tiny. I'm gonna scale this down just a little, something like this. Then go to edit mode and add a loop cut. And you can see that we can't add a loop cut along this cone, and the reason is because we can only add a loop cut through quads, and quads are which have 4 faces, and these are evil triangles that have 4 vertices. So I'm gonna select this top vertex and press Ctrl Shift B to bevel the vertex. And now you can see that these have 4 faces, and now we can add a loop cut. Then I'm gonna go to front view and scale this down a little, something like this. Move this down and press Ctrl B to bevel the edge, and you can scroll up your middle mouse button to add more segments. Then go to object mode. I'm gonna shade this smooth, and also I'm gonna delete this down face. Then add an array modifier, and now we can duplicate this as many times as we want, but we don't want this on the x-axis, we want this on the y-axis. So I'm gonna set this to 0 and I'm gonna increase the y factor value. And now let's add a curve modifier and choose the curve that we made. And this is the wrong way, so change the deform axis to y-axis, and now this is facing the correct way. And you notice that it has also rotated our thorn. And now let's move this on the edge of the aloe vera. But when you move this on the x-axis, it moves on the z-axis, and when you move this on the z-axis, it moves on the x-axis, and that's annoying, but just tolerate with me. So to move this on the x-axis, I'm gonna move this up on the z-axis. Then I'm gonna go to front view and I'm gonna move this on the x-axis to move it up, but the y-axis is correct. I'm gonna move this down, something like this, and also I'm gonna rotate this on the y-axis a little, so it's like pointing upwards a little bit more, something like this. And I'm gonna move that up a little bit, scale it up on the y-axis because it's looking squeezed, and this is coming out of the aloe vera. So I'm gonna go to edit mode and enable these options so you can see the effect of curve modifier in edit mode. Then select these top vertices, enable proportional editing and move these down, and now everything is moving with these vertices, and that's because the fall off is so high. So decrease that down by scrolling down the scroll wheel, and now move these down a little bit. And then I'm going to select this whole edge loop by holding Alt and then move it to the right. And now I'm going to move that up a little bit to the left, and again these are coming out. So go to edit mode and select these vertices, decrease down the fall off and move them down just a little bit. And now it's looking pretty good. And to fill this hole, you can select the curve and go to the object data properties and enable this fill caps option. And now the hole is closed. And when we edit the curve, we don't want to select the thorns again and change the count number. So what we can instead do is change the fit type to fit curve, and now we can select the curve and nothing happens, and the reason is because we haven't applied the scale. So press Ctrl A and apply the scale. And now when we edit the curve, the thorns will be spawned to fit the curve. And that's pretty good. And also we want these thorns to be on the other side also. So just select the thorns and add a mirror modifier. And these are rotated in a weird way. So to fix that, just select the mirror object to be the curve. And now the mirror modifier is using the curve's origin point as the mirror. And now it's on the other side also. But when we edit the curve, these thorns move in a weird position. And to fix that, select the thorns and move the mirror modifier before the curve modifier. And you have to also change the axis also. The Z axis works for me. And now when we edit the curve, everything is fine. But when we move our aloe vera, the thorns again move in a weird way. And to fix that, you can just select the thorns and then the aloe vera and then parent it to the aloe vera. And now it moves with the aloe vera. But when we go to edit mode and move this handle, everything again goes mad. So I'm gonna undo these steps. And now I'm gonna show you how to fix that, and it shouldn't again cause any problems. So now I'm gonna add an empty plane axis and I'm gonna scale this down to 0.5. And now select these thorns and the aloe vera and make sure that the empty is orange colored. That means the empty is the active object. Then parent these to the empty. And now instead of moving this aloe vera, you can now move this empty to move everything, and now you can also edit the curve and nothing weird happens. And now select everything and duplicate, move and rotate these and also edit the curves to make the plant. And one thing that you can do to speed up your workflow is instead of selecting these three objects, you can select the empty and press right square bracket to select its children. And you can also do the opposite, which is pressing the left square bracket to select its parent. But when you hold down shift while pressing right square bracket, you can select the children with the empty being selected. And this makes the process easier when you have a lot of objects in the scene. And now you can easily duplicate, move and rotate and also edit the curves to make the plant. And also use references to see how the plant looks. And it's the best to have the thing that you are modeling.
Many minutes later.
And now this is what I've got. I'm gonna hide the overlay so you can see that better. And at the bottom it doesn't look any good, but it doesn't matter because below the plant there will be soil. And for this smaller leaf, I'm gonna delete this thorn. And you can see that these thorns are stopped at this point. So to fix that, I'm gonna select that and I'm gonna go to the modifiers, and in the array modifier I'm gonna change the fit type to fixed count, and now I'm gonna decrease down the count until it fits the curve. But keep in mind that now when you edit the curve, these thorns won't be spawned to fit the curve. So what I recommend doing is change this back to fixed count only when you have made the plant. And now I'm gonna do the same for this one because this one has stopped also. So I'm gonna change this to fixed count and I'm gonna decrease this down until it fits the leaf, and this looks good. And if these empties are annoying you, you can go to the view object types and hide the empties. And now all the empties won't be visible. And for the pot, I downloaded this plant model from polyheaven.com, which is a great website for free resources. Then unzip the folder and open up the blend file. I've already opened that up. And then go to edit mode and now select the plant and the soil by moving the mouse over that and pressing L to select linked parts. There is soil also. Select that and select this one also. And now press Ctrl I to select the inverse and then delete the plant. And now press Ctrl C to copy the object, and now I'm gonna paste that by pressing Ctrl V into my scene. And now let's place it below our plant. Move that over here. I'm gonna move this over here and then scale that up, and I'm gonna move that down. And now it's time for the materials. So for the aloe vera material, I photographed this image, then I took that into GIMP, then go to filters, map, and select tile seamless. And now this will make the image seamless. That means when we tile or repeat the image, there will be no seams or interruptions. And now export the image wherever you want. And to show you the difference, here is the actual photographed image when repeated, and here you can see the seams clearly and it looks so bad. And now here is the image that we made seamless inside of GIMP, and here you can't see the seams and it looks way better than that. And now let's make the materials. Select this leaf and make a new material. I'm going to rename that to aloe vera. Then open up the shader editor and add an image texture. Then open up the image texture that we exported from GIMP and connect the color to the base color. And I'm going to go to rendered view, and I'm going to deselect these two options to light the scene with an HDRI in the viewport. And if you have enabled the node wrangler add-on in the preferences, which you should always enable, with the image texture selected, you can press Ctrl T to add a texture coordinate and a mapping node. And by default it uses the UV as the vector, but we are going to use the object as the vector. And now in the mapping node, change the scale of these three values by holding the left mouse button on that and dragging it down over these three values, and then press and then change that to 5. And now let's link the same material to all of these leaves. And a quick way to select all of these curves is to go to the view object types and hide the mesh, and now we can only see the curves. And now we can easily select all of these curves and make sure that this is the active object. Then press Ctrl L and link the materials. And now to add variation in the roughness, I'm gonna add a color ramp, and I'm gonna move all of these over here. And now connect the color to the factor, and now you can preview this color ramp node by holding Ctrl Shift and left clicking on that. And now this has converted our image into a black and white image. And now I'm gonna move this to the left to make the image brighter. And also I'm gonna make these white values a little bit darker, something like this. And now I'm gonna move this one to the right to about over here, and also I'm gonna make these dark values brighter, something like this. And now connect this color to the roughness, and now wherever these darker colors are, our material will be shiny, and wherever these brighter colors are, our material will be rough. And if you don't know that, you can watch my previous tutorial on materials by clicking the I button. And now let's preview the principal BSDF by holding Ctrl Shift and left clicking on that. And to add some small details, I'm gonna add a bump node. and then connect the color to the height and the normal to the normal. And the strength is too much, so I'm going to decrease that down to 0.2. And now you can see these small little details. And to make the plant look softer and fleshy, I'm going to increase the subsurface scattering a little bit. And subsurface scattering is when the light passes through a translucent object, giving this type of glowy effect. And also connect this image texture to the subsurface color. And here's the difference it makes by enabling the subsurface scattering. And the subsurface radius defines how far each color of light travels underneath the object. And if you click on that, you can see that it has been separated into 3 channels: red, green and blue. And by default it's set to a value of something like skin. And you can see the effect better when I change this HDRI. And you can see that it's looking like our plant has blood in it, and it's because the red light is traveling the farthest. So I'm going to decrease down the red value to 0.6, and I'm going to increase the green value to 0.7, and you can see that it's now looking greener. And if you have any problems in textures, like this one's texture is rotated to the right, so to fix that, select the curve. Then I'm gonna go to local view by pressing the forward slash, then go to edit mode and select everything and rotate that on the Z axis until the texture is correct. And now the textures are correct. So to go out of local view, press the forward slash again. And now let's move this leaf to where it was. But don't move this leaf. Let me show you by unhiding the mesh. And when you move the mesh, you can see that the thorns move out of their place. So now I'm gonna unhide the empties and now press left square bracket to select the parent. And now let's move this empty to move the leaf and also the thorns. I'm gonna move this over here, move it down, and also I'm gonna rotate that a little on the y-axis. And now I'm gonna hide the empties again. And now let's make the material for the thorns. So I'm gonna select this thorn and link the same aloe vera material. But before making any changes to this material, duplicate this material by clicking on this button so it doesn't affect the original material. Then I'm gonna rename this to thorns. And I'm gonna move these to the left. And you can connect these lines at one point by holding shift and holding left mouse button and dragging over these lines. And now you can move this point by pressing G. And the thorns are brighter and whitish at the point. So to make that effect, I'm gonna add a geometry node. And now let's preview the pointiness value by holding Ctrl Shift and left clicking on that multiple times. And now let's add a color ramp. And I'm gonna move this to the right. And I'm gonna change the interpolation mode from linear to B-spline. And now let's move these flags until we get the white color at the point and the dark color at the bottom. I'm gonna move this to the left and I'm gonna move this one to the right. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. I'm gonna move this to the right just a little. And now again let's add a color ramp. And now I'm gonna move this to the right to make it darker. Something like this. And now we have white color at the top. So what I'll do now is I'm gonna first move these to the right and also these ones. Then I'll add a mix RGB node and move this over here. And now I'll again connect this image into the color 2. But now I'm gonna add a hue saturation node in between of this. And now let's preview this hue saturation node. And now I'm gonna decrease the hue just a little bit to make it yellowish. And then I'll decrease the saturation to 0.5 to make it desaturated, and I'll increase the value all the way up to make it brighter. And now let's preview this mix RGB node. And now instead of this factor to mix these two colors, I'll plug this color into the factor. And now wherever these white colors are, our second color will be over there. I'm gonna select these and I'm gonna move these to the left. And now let's preview the principal BSDF. I'm gonna move this to the right. And this is looking darker, so to make that glow, I'm gonna add a translucent BSDF, and then I'll add an add shader. Then I'll connect the translucent BSDF into the bottom socket, and now plug the same color into the translucent color. And also you can add a hue saturation node, and you can change this value to increase or decrease the amount of translucency. And also you can play with these until you get the effect. I'm gonna increase this value to 1.5. And now let's link this material to all of the thorns. So again I'm gonna go to view object types, but this time I'm gonna hide the curves, and now we can easily select these thorns, and now select these, and now select this last and press Ctrl L and link the materials. And now let's unhide this. And that's it for this video, guys. In the next part I'll show you how you can create this last plant in Blender. And if you find this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and the bell down below so you won't miss any of my new videos. I'll be back.